Hi there, I'm Mark Stutman from Folkway Music. Today I'm here to show to you a new tool developed by TJ Thompson with a bunch of my help, and it is specific to Gibson guitars. It's styled after TJ's very popular Martin belly reducers, which aren't to be used on Gibson guitars. So when TJ introduced his belly reducers a number of years ago, I said to him, hey, we need something like that specific to Gibson guitars, because Gibsons are not built like Martins. And so over the course of the last few years, at a slow pace, admittedly, we've been working on this Gibson top corrector kit, and finally have a good prototype ready here. And TJ is launching into production soon, and asked me to do a little show and tell video as to how they work. So Gibson guitars are built with a radius on the top. Martin guitars are built with a flat top. When you have a flat top, you can use the Martin belly reducers to squash the top back into flat again. If you used a Martin belly reducer on a Gibson, you're going to squash the guitar top flat, but the guitar was built with a radius top, and so you're doing more damage than good if you use a Martin belly reducer on a Gibson flat top. Gibsons are built with a radius. It varies, 10-foot radius to 15, 12, anywhere in there. Time has obviously changes the radius of the top, and so it's very important for the tools that we use on Gibsons to be radiused to match the top of the guitar, to maintain that top radius. That's critical stuff. Here's a 30s Gibson bridge, and you can see it's flat on the top. Oh, that's the bottom of my straight edge. Flat on the top, and on the bottom it has a lot of radius to it, right? So that's how Gibson guitars were built, and maintaining that radius, you can get another view of it right here, maintaining that radius is very critical to maintaining the sound and functionality of a Gibson guitar. Now, the other thing that's specific to Gibsons in terms of bridge repairs is the location of the bridge pins. On a Gibson bridge, the pins are located at the back of the bridge, whereas on a Martin bridge, the pins would be located in the center of the bridge. So imagine if your strings are pulling up on the guitar over time, if the strings are pulling up right near the back edge of the bridge is going to lean forward like this. On a Martin guitar with the strings pulling up through the middle of the bridge, it'll lean forward, but it's also going to get pulled up. And so the belly that Martin develops is right through the center of the pinholes and in the center of the bridge pad area, so you can kind of squash that down and correct your problem. With a Gibson, the belly that's developed hinges on the back edge of the bridge, so the whole bridge goes like that, and the top has a hinge right along the back edge. It makes it more difficult to repair. You can't just squash the whole thing down, because the squash that needs to happen is at the back edge of the bridge. Another reason why the Martin belly reducer design isn't really perfect for a Gibson. So we needed to build something that was specific to Gibsons, and this is what it's all about. So similar to the Martin belly reducers, there is an aluminum caul. The Gibson ones have a radius. They are convex. So it's domed this way and this way to 15 feet. You can't see it like this, but if I put a straight edge on it, as you can see, there is a radius there. They're also impregnated with magnets for easy location. That was a little TJ extra that I hadn't thought about, but it's super handy. Now, unlike Martin, of course, Gibson was anything but consistent over the years, and they had many, many, many different shapes and sizes of bridge plates. So the kit that we've got here, I've got 6 different cauls, and they are all measured off of guitars from Gibson's formative years, from the very late 20s into about 1962. They're not designed to be used with Gibsons from after 61, 62, when they switched to plywood bridge plate. Plywood bridge plates, just a different story. Just don't even think of these for repairing plywood bridge plate guitars. That's another chapter of the book that we're not reading quite yet. We're looking at repairing guitars that have solid maple bridge plates that were built from the late 20s into let's just say 61. So there's many different sizes of these bridge plate cauls, and each one is labeled as to what they are. So this one here is the 12 fret L-shaped guitars, 1932 to 39. 14 fret L-shaped guitars, 32 to 39. Here's a very common one. This one says Mark's Kalkreuden, 12 fret L-shaped guitars and longer plate variation from 29 to 32. So those first 12 fret Gibsons were this plate. This is one that looks almost identical to it, and this is a very common plate in Banner era guitars, J45s and LG2s. It fits many 12 fret L body guitars. Fits J35s from the late 30s. There's this guy right over here, which is the wide X variation of a J35 from 1940, 41, 42. This also fits on J185s. So most people are not going to use that one too much, but it's pretty useful in my guitar repair practice. This little guy deals with the 1941, 42 tighter X-brace variation guitars. So you can see it's squatter and wider. And then this one here is classic 50s bridge plate, J45 and J50 late 50s, and B25s into the early 60s. The plywood bridge plates are this big, and again, they're made out of plywood, so they don't repair the same way as solid wood does. So we have all these calls. I'll show you how to use those in a moment. The other thing that we've got are these things. You might say, well, what the heck are these? Well, what these are is these are top area correctors. Now, I find these super useful. You use these when you don't actually have a bridge plate in the guitar. Oftentimes, a bridge plate on a Gibson guitar is really badly installed. The location is messed up, or it's really badly cracked through the pinholes. And for whatever reason, you need to take that bridge plate out. It's much more common to take the bridge plate out of a Gibson than it is a Martin. Martin bridge plates were always really nicely installed, and they were tucked under the X-brace until the early 50s. So Gibson never tucked their bridge plates. They never tucked really anything, and they're generally, admittedly, pretty terribly installed with ill fit at the X-braces, and sometimes the pinholes break out the back of the bridge plate. There's all kinds of mess. Anyways, the top can get really damaged when a bridge plate is badly located, particularly if the pinholes are shattered, like they are on many Gibsons from the early 50s. And so if the bridge plate comes out and you need to correct the top, that's what these are for. So these have that same 15-foot radius, but they're shaped to fit right under the bridge area inside the X-brace, and help you to correct the whole top of the guitar. They're used the same way as the bridge plate calls. They're just designed to be used without a bridge plate. And so there's a few different sizes that we've got here, and they're labeled as well for different X-brace angles and different X-brace angles, different era of guitars. Anyways, I love those. This guitar on my bench here has a bridge plate in it. I didn't take the bridge plate out of this guitar, and it needs to get corrected. This one isn't so terrible, as I've actually already done a first round of bridge plate correction on this one, but it's the guitar I've got that doesn't have a bridge on it, so it's going to be our demo. How this call set works is different than Martin's. On the Martin calls, there's a matching aluminum call that fits exactly on the bridge area, and those calls they have a convex surface that pushes down into the concave surface of the bridge plate call. Different thing with the Gibsons. These all have that convex 15-foot radius, and these go inside the guitar. On the top of the guitar, this is maybe my favorite part of this whole set that TJ has created. On the top of the guitar, you're going to use one of these things. So what this is a 1/4-inch piece of Lexan, and the beauty about these is that it's got a cutout for the pickguard, which is super neat. These are prototypes. This is a finished product. No, not this one. Right here. This is a finished product one. That's past the prototype shape. So that's for a J-size body. So this one's 16 inches wide, and this is for a small guard version. So basically early Banner until 1955, and you can see the cutout there. And so this would fit, the bridge plate would be right over here, and it fits right over the pickguard. And it's only routed out by around 20 thou or so, 22 thou, which is just the height that the pickguard sticks up above the top. So it will be in contact with the top there and in contact with the top there. On this guitar, this is a 14 fret. So I'm going to grab my 14 fret call, and you can see this has the earlier 30s shape cut into it. And so it fits right on top of the guitar like that. And you can see how it lines right up with the pickguard and the sides of the guitar. It's very convenient. And what I'm going to first do, I'll get this tape ready. There's one more step before I tape it, actually. It just fits perfectly like this. So before I do anything to this guitar, the first thing I need to do is wet the top. And so I use these little gauze pads, and I have my hot glue pot right over here that has nice warm water in it. And so I get some water on my cloth, and I'm going to just soak the top. Let the water seep in there. I'm going to take it off the finish so I don't hurt the finish. And I'm going to do the same thing on the inside of the guitar to the bridge plate and the area right around the bridge plate as well. Getting this wet is critical to its success. Now, you don't want to go crazy with water inside your guitar. I've got a mirror in here, so if anything drips, it will land on the mirror. But yeah, you're not trying to create an ocean inside your guitar. You're just wetting the guitar and trying to. You're basically going to be ironing the guitar with this call set and your clamps, and so a dry iron doesn't do very much. You got to put a bit of wetness in it. And so I'm not wetting it to the point where the finish is going to start bubbling up on the top here. I'm a little careful as to how much finish I put or how much water I put on the top, because I don't want it to seep under the lacquer and start bubbling the top. I can put more on the bottom safely. And I'm getting in front of the bridge plate and behind the bridge plate and on the bridge plate and through the pinholes. And so this whole area is going to be made nice and wet. Alright, here we go. So once that's wet, the next thing that I would do, and I maybe would have done before I started this whole process, is to warm this guy up. You can soak it in your hot glue pot. That's a good way to keep it warm before you start. Just let it warm up in there. You can put it in a toaster oven. You're not trying to cook the guitar. So getting this to 140 or 160 degrees Fahrenheit is plenty. It's just again trying to iron the top, and things that are not hot don't work as well for ironing. So I would have left this in my glue pot for 10 minutes before I started. It would be nice and warm. I'm not going to bother right now because I'm just doing a show and tell here. So before I put this in, I'm going to take my top call and I'm going to put it in place. I'm going to grab my tape, and I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on there just to hold it in place where I want it to be. Just makes life easier. And then I have a couple magnets that I'm just going to stick on the top, sort of around the bridge pin holes. And I'll take my call, make sure I have the right one, and make sure I have the radius the right way. And I'm going to stick it on the bridge plate. And then the magnets that I've put in here are going to temporarily hold it in place. And I visually check on the inside. Looks good. It's on the bridge plate. It's not askew. It's exactly where I want. The next thing I'm going to do, I have another little piece of plexiglass here, another 1/4 inch piece of Lexan, and I'm just going to stick it in between there, in between the magnets, and then put an extra piece of tape on it just to keep it from moving around. So that stops the magnets from jumping together, which is nice, and it stops the magnets from jumping onto my clamp. I could actually even just put a piece of tape on them if they bug me, which they can. Next, I'm going to take a pretty sizable clamp. This is a big C clamp here, and it's pretty darn strong. I've got an extra little spacer there because I have to clear the X brace, and I'm going to put this clamp in the guitar in the center, and I'm going to clamp towards the back of the bridge plate. So my clamp is actually on the hinge line of the top, and clamp it nice and tight, and then that bit's down. So now I can remove those magnets because they're going to be in the way for my next step. And it's nice and tight. That's great. Then I'm going to take some other clamps. If you have 3 of these, go ahead and use 3 of these if you want. I'm just using these StuMat clamps. I find them, they're not terribly strong, but they're strong enough for this job. And I'm going to also put them towards the back edge of the bridge plate on the corners of that call. You can use another piece of plexi as a spacer too if you want to get some more longitudinal strength across the upper call. So I'll put that there, tighten it down, and do the same thing on the other side. When I'm using the larger calls that go on the guitar without the bridge plate, I'm going to put clamps everywhere, particularly behind the bridge plate, to really push down on the top to remove that hinge point, which is what we're trying to combat. I ran out of threads here, so I'm going to just do this again. Pretty normal occurrence. There we go. All right. So I'm tightening these down as hard as they go. These clamps are not terribly strong. It's really good to really crank on these things. If you're using a light duty clamp like this, if you use heavier duty clamps, it's easier to get the clamping tension you need. But these ones, you can maybe even use some kind of device to give them the final tweak if you're really trying to make them tight. So sometimes I'll put 2 more clamps at the front as well to kind of hinge around. And then the last thing that I like to do is I grab a couple squeeze clamps and I do the sides. And that pushes down on the call that we've got and just helps keep things flat. In extreme circumstances, I'll take a weight. I'll take a sandbag, like a lead shot bag, 10 pounds or something, and push down right over here, and let that just sit there until the whole thing's done. I will leave this now for the weekend, for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. The longer the better, until that water that I've put in there has had a chance to dry. As you might imagine, it's not going to dry quickly because I've just put this nice waterproof plexiglass on it on this side and that aluminum call on the inside. The longer you give it, the drier it's going to be, and when you take your clamps out, generally the top will be ready to rock and roll. The whole thing pivots, maybe that's the wrong word, but it hinges on how well your bridge fit is done when you're finished. It's critical when this is all done to make sure that your bridge fits the top perfectly as well. And using these calls to get your bridge into the perfect match is a good idea. You can heat your bridge up, you can heat your call up, and you can use them to clamp your bridge to it to get that radius right. There's a lot of finessing that you have to do, particularly with the 30s Gibson, to make it fit a top properly. And knowing how much bulge and radius you want on the top of the guitar is something that basically happens with experience. I'm not always trying to make it perfect 15 everywhere. Some guitars clearly don't want that. Whatever the guitar was that this came off of, this is from 32. It has a lot of radius on the back and not very much on the front, so sometimes you split the difference a little bit. That's what that's all about. This is going to sit for a few days, and then I'll take these clamps off and I'll check it out, and if it worked, it worked. If it doesn't work, then I can try it again, maybe with a bit more water or a bit more heat. One thing I should mention to you, if you're using, I didn't use heat on this guitar obviously, but if you're going to use heat, not a bad idea is to put some paste wax on the underside of this top caul, and remembering to make sure you get it all off before you go to glue the bridge back on. I just don't want to see any finish damage, and when you're clamping something that's hot with plexiglass on a vintage old finish, there's the possibility of the plastic taking finish off the guitar top, which would be really shameful. So a little bit of paste wax will stop that from happening, as long as you promise and remember to clean the bridge pad area very thoroughly before you go gluing your bridge on, so that that wax doesn't impede your glue adhesion. Obviously nothing with silicone in it, but just some plain old paste wax is good to go. Anyways, that's the caul set. It's an exciting development for Gibson guitar repair. Gibsons generally don't have too many specific tools made for the acoustic repairs, and it's nice to see this in action, and I'm hoping that everyone has some good results and has some fun using them. Anyways, over and out. Enjoy the day and enjoy fixing guitars, and we'll see you whenever the next time is. Thanks for watching.